My beloved child, something has finally reached the moment it could no longer remain hidden. Stay with me, because the waiting you thought was empty may have been preparing you for something you could not have carried in the same way before. Don't look away now. There were moments when you wondered why the door stayed closed, why the answer seemed delayed, why your effort appeared unnoticed, and why you kept arriving at the edge of change only to find yourself standing there a little longer. You questioned the silence. You questioned the timing. You may even have questioned yourself. But imagine for a moment that the delay was never an empty room. Imagine it was a workshop. Imagine every quiet season was shaping your judgment, strengthening your patience, clearing away what could not follow you, and preparing your hands for something larger than what you originally requested. What comes next changes everything, because the greatest revelation is not simply that something beautiful may be ahead of you. It is that the person who first asked for it and the person listening now are no longer the same person. You have changed while you waited. You have learned what deserves your energy. You have discovered what peace feels like after disappointment. You have watched certain expectations disappear and somehow found yourself still standing. That matters more than you realize. Stay till the end, because the mystery begins exactly here. Picture a seed beneath the soil. From above, nothing appears to be happening. There is no applause beneath the earth. There is no visible evidence that the darkness is accomplishing anything. Yet underneath the surface, the seed is breaking open. Roots are forming before anyone sees leaves. Strength is developing before beauty becomes visible. Your waiting season may have felt exactly like that. You kept looking above the soil for proof while the most important preparation was happening where you could not see it. This is where the story begins. The blessing you wanted immediately may have required roots you did not yet possess. The opportunity you prayed would arrive quickly may have demanded wisdom that could only be formed slowly. The relationship, restoration, direction, peace, breakthrough, or new beginning you imagined may have needed a stronger version of you to receive it without losing yourself inside it. Don't skip, because there is another layer. Sometimes what feels like being denied is actually being redirected away from a smaller outcome. You asked for one door because it was the only door you could see. But what if the hallway continued beyond it? You cried over one ending because you could not yet see what that ending was making room for. You tried to understand why certain people became distant, why certain plans refused to work, why certain opportunities almost happened and then disappeared. And perhaps you interpreted every interruption as evidence that you had been forgotten. But consider another possibility: some endings were creating space. Some delays were giving you discernment. Some unanswered questions were teaching you not to build your identity around outcomes. Some lonely moments were revealing how much strength had been buried beneath your dependence on outside reassurance. Your answer is closer than you think, but the answer may not look exactly like the picture you created years ago. That is the emotional twist hidden inside the waiting. You thought the reward would simply be receiving what you asked for. Yet perhaps part of the reward is becoming someone who no longer needs the old version of that request. Stay with me. Something huge is waiting for you in this realization. The things you once chased may no longer impress you. The approval you once needed may no longer control you. The doors you once begged to reopen may now look too small. That is not failure. That is growth revealing itself. Imagine standing before two doors. One is decorated beautifully, familiar and immediately attractive. The other looks ordinary, almost easy to overlook. Years ago, you would have chosen the first without hesitation. But now you notice something you could not have noticed before: the beautiful door leads backward. The quiet door leads forward. Waiting taught you how to recognize the difference. And this is why timing matters. A blessing received before wisdom can become a burden. Recognition received before character can become pressure. Money received before discipline can disappear. Love received before self-respect can become confusion. Opportunity received before preparation can become overwhelming. So perhaps the question was never simply, when will it arrive? Perhaps the deeper question was, who will I become before it arrives? Don't look away now, because that question changes the entire meaning of your past. The nights when you thought nothing was changing may have been changing you. The mornings when you woke up tired but continued anyway were building endurance. The moments when nobody noticed your effort were teaching you to continue without applause. The disappointments that forced you to begin again were quietly proving that your story could survive a chapter you never wanted. And now something inside you recognizes a truth you could not have understood at the beginning: waiting was not merely about time. It was about capacity. It was about making room inside you. It was about removing the desperate need to force what was not ready. Stay with me, because the next image matters. Imagine a vessel being prepared for something precious. If the vessel is cracked, whatever enters it leaks away. So before something valuable is poured in, the vessel must be strengthened. Your patience was strengthening you. Your boundaries were strengthening you. Your ability to walk away from what repeatedly disturbed your peace was strengthening you. Your willingness to begin again without knowing exactly how the story would end was strengthening you. You may have called these seasons losses, but some of them were repairs. You may have called them delays, but some of them were reinforcement. You may have called them silence, but some of them were invitations to hear what noise had previously covered. What comes next changes everything. Perhaps you were not waiting alone for circumstances to change. Circumstances were waiting for you to become ready to respond differently when they did. There is another reason this moment feels different, and you need to hear it carefully. Stay with me. Have you noticed how certain things that once disturbed you no longer carry the same power? Have you noticed that your intuition about people, choices, and opportunities has become sharper? Perhaps you cannot explain it, but something inside you has become quieter and clearer at the same time. That quietness is important. Real transformation does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it appears as the moment you stop explaining yourself to everyone. Sometimes it appears when you stop chasing someone who repeatedly chooses distance. Sometimes it appears when you realize that peace is worth more than winning an argument. Sometimes it appears when an opportunity that once would have excited you suddenly feels wrong because you have learned to recognize what costs too much internally. Don't skip. The secret blessing may begin with discernment before anything visible changes around you. You expected something to arrive in your hands, but first something had to awaken in your mind. You expected a dramatic external sign, but perhaps the earliest sign is the fact that you no longer react the way you used to. That is enormous. Something huge is waiting for you, because when your reactions change, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your direction changes, and when your direction changes, destinations that once seemed impossible can slowly become reachable. Think about the pattern you have been leaving behind. There were times when you accepted less because you feared having nothing. There were times when you rushed because waiting frightened you. There were times when you ignored your own inner hesitation because you wanted an answer immediately. There were moments when you called something a blessing simply because it arrived quickly. Now you know better. Speed is not always confirmation. Delay is not always rejection. Noise is not always importance. Silence is not always absence. This is where the story begins again, but this time you enter it with different eyes. The mystery surrounding your waiting starts to unravel when you understand that preparation often hides itself inside ordinary days. There was no trumpet when you became stronger. There was no announcement when you learned to say no. Nobody handed you a certificate when you survived the season you thought would defeat you. Yet you changed. Quietly. Deeply. Permanently. And because you changed, what belongs in your next chapter must meet a different standard. Stay till the end, because this is where the once-in-a-lifetime revelation becomes personal. Perhaps what you called a delay was actually a separation between two versions of your life. On one side stood the version where you would have accepted anything because you were afraid of losing everything. On the other side stands the version where you can recognize alignment without desperation. The distance between those two versions could not be crossed in one afternoon. It required experiences. It required disappointment. It required rebuilding. It required moments when you had to choose yourself without knowing whether anyone would understand. And perhaps that is why certain things refuse to arrive on your preferred schedule. You were asking for an answer while still becoming capable of recognizing the right answer. Your answer is closer than you think. Consider the spiritual symbolism of dawn. The darkest appearance of the sky does not mean the sun has disappeared forever. Dawn develops before the horizon visibly changes. Light is already traveling while the landscape still looks dark. There is a stage when morning is inevitable but not yet obvious. Perhaps your life contains seasons like that. Nothing outside seems dramatically different, yet internally the conditions are no longer the same. Something has shifted. You are thinking differently. You are releasing differently. You are choosing differently. You are becoming less available for confusion and more available for clarity. Don't look away now. That is often where a new chapter begins, not when everything around you suddenly transforms, but when something inside you refuses to return to what it has outgrown. The blessing prepared in secret may not be one magical object falling from the sky. It may unfold through a sequence of openings. The right conversation arriving at an unexpected moment, an idea suddenly making sense, an opportunity appearing after you stopped forcing the wrong one, a relationship becoming clearer, a financial decision becoming wiser, a burden becoming lighter because you finally understand what belongs to you and what never did. One opening leads to another. One choice changes another. One quiet realization becomes the beginning of an entirely different direction. Stay with me, because the surprising part is that you may recognize the beginning only afterward. One day you may look back at an ordinary morning and realize, that was the day everything started changing. Nothing dramatic happened at first. You simply made one different choice. You answered differently. You declined what you once would have accepted. You pursued something you once believed was beyond you. You trusted patience instead of panic. And that small decision became the first domino. What comes next changes everything because the waiting season was teaching you how to make that decision when the moment arrived. You thought you needed a miracle that removed every obstacle. Perhaps what you were being prepared for was the wisdom to recognize the next step. And one correct step can reveal a road that was invisible from where you previously stood. That is why you cannot judge your entire future from today's view. A person standing at the bottom of a staircase cannot see everything visible from the top. You have been trying to understand the destination while still climbing. No wonder some things made no sense. They were never supposed to make complete sense from that level. Keep moving. Keep learning. Keep becoming. The view changes with elevation. Now listen closely, because this is the point where the meaning of the title opens completely. I couldn't wait any longer to give this to you does not have to mean impatience in heaven. In this spiritual story, it represents the feeling of a preparation reaching completion, like a letter finally sealed, a harvest finally ripe, a door finally ready to open. Stay with me. Imagine spending years watching individual pieces of a puzzle and believing they were unrelated. One piece was heartbreak. Another was rejection. Another was a delayed opportunity. Another was a friendship that changed. Another was an unexpected responsibility. Another was a season when you had to learn everything alone. Looking at each piece separately, you saw confusion. But now the pieces begin moving toward one another. What if the person you became through one disappointment gives you the wisdom required for an opportunity arriving through another? What if the boundary you learned from one relationship protects the peace of your next one? What if the discipline created during financial pressure prepares you to manage abundance more wisely later? What if the courage born from being overlooked becomes exactly what you need when you are finally seen? Don't skip, because this is why the waiting suddenly carries meaning. The blessing is not merely the next event. The blessing is the way your entire journey can begin connecting. Something huge is waiting for you in that connection. You may discover that nothing valuable you learned was wasted. The patience was not wasted. The rebuilding was not wasted. The nights of questioning were not wasted if they taught you how to seek clarity. The closed doors were not wasted if they prevented you from settling permanently in rooms you had already outgrown. The people who misunderstood you were not wasted if the experience taught you to stop abandoning yourself for approval. The plans that changed were not wasted if they forced you to discover abilities you would never have explored otherwise. Stay till the end, because the deepest emotional twist is this: you may have spent years asking why you were made to wait, only to eventually become grateful that certain things did not happen when you first demanded them. Think about who you were then. Think about what you tolerated. Think about what impressed you. Think about what frightened you. Think about how easily you gave your peace away. Would you truly want today's opportunities placed into yesterday's hands? Would yesterday's version of you have known what to protect, what to refuse, what to nurture, and what to release? Perhaps not. And suddenly the delay looks different. Not cruel. Not empty. Not meaningless. Protective. Educational. Transformative. Your answer is closer than you think, because the answer to, "Why did I have to wait?" may already be visible inside the person you have become. You waited because some things needed to leave. You waited because some lessons needed repetition before they became wisdom. You waited because you were still discovering the difference between what looked impressive and what actually brought peace. You waited because your dream needed deeper roots than excitement alone could provide. You waited because receiving is only half the story. Sustaining what you receive is another skill entirely. Don't look away now. Imagine finally reaching the place you once prayed for and realizing that the greatest gift was not simply arriving there. The greatest gift was being able to remain there without destroying your peace, abandoning your values, or forgetting who you are. That requires preparation. And perhaps that preparation has been happening quietly all along. This is where the story begins, because now the waiting no longer needs to define you. You do not have to live permanently facing yesterday's closed door. Turn around. There may be an entire landscape behind you that you never noticed because you were staring at what refused to open. There are possibilities you have not considered. Conversations you have not had. Ideas you have not explored. Strengths you have barely used. New versions of your life that do not require the permission of what rejected you. Stay with me. The blessing prepared in secret may begin when you finally stop asking an old chapter to give you a new ending. You are allowed to move forward. You are allowed to believe that something meaningful can grow after disappointment. You are allowed to become excited again without pretending the past never happened. You are allowed to carry wisdom without carrying bitterness. You are allowed to remember without returning. You are allowed to hope without forcing certainty. And you are allowed to discover that the wait changed you in ways that will only make sense when the next chapter asks for everything you learned. What comes next changes everything, because the door ahead does not require the old you. It requires the person who survived the hallway. The person who learned patience when there was no shortcut. The person who learned discernment when appearances became unreliable. The person who learned courage when reassurance was unavailable. The person who discovered that peace can exist even before every question receives an answer. Something huge is waiting for you. Not a promise that every wish will instantly appear, but a revelation that your story is still moving, your capacity is still expanding, and the seasons you thought were empty may become the very seasons you understand most deeply later. So when the next opportunity appears, notice it. When peace replaces pressure, notice it. When you feel yourself refusing an old pattern without effort, notice it. When an unexpected conversation opens a possibility, notice it. When something you once desperately wanted no longer fits, notice it. Those moments are evidence of movement. Stay till the end of this season without assuming you already know how it concludes. The final page has not been written by the disappointment behind you. The closed door does not own the hallway. The delay does not own your destiny. And the silence does not mean nothing is forming. Somewhere between everything you lost and everything you are becoming lies the answer you have been searching for. And when you finally see how the pieces connect, you may understand why rushing the process would have given you something smaller than the transformation the waiting produced. Stay with me, because the next chapter does not begin with you begging the past to change. It begins with you recognizing that you have changed. And once you recognize that, the question is no longer, why did I have to wait so long? The question becomes, what am I finally ready to receive, recognize, protect, and become now? That question is the doorway. And beyond it, something you could not have understood at the beginning of this journey is finally beginning to reveal itself.